projection.
It's Friday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Alabama Slam podcast. I'm your host, Corey Hanna.
What's going on, guys? It's Patrick Akers.
And we are in for a packed edition of Dynamite. Packed in that, like, it was pretty much top to bottom quality show. They didn't fit in a ton of segments like they've been doing lately. That's something we'll touch on. Don't really have any major news that we're going to cover for the week, so we're going to jump right into it. CM Punk came out last night, and that's been sort of the talk of the town today and the dirt sheets and everything. Supposedly, the promo on Hangman Page was a shoot. It wasn't planned, wasn't part of anything that was supposed to happen. So it kind of made Hangman look like a bitch.
Yeah, I was kind of taken aback when he started off this. So yeah, like you said, the talk of the town, it's all been a shoot. It's all unscripted. None of this was planned. Apparently it pissed off some people in the back. All this stemming from a promo that Hangman and Punk cut, or that Hangman cut on Punk back when they had their feud, which feels like forever ago. It only happened in May.
Right.
And so here's this is a quote from Dave Meltzer I pulled up here. It says, "If you're wondering about the CM Punk thing at the start of the show with Adam Page, that was weird for everyone, as in nobody knew he was going to do that. So I don't know what the deal was, and nobody else does either, but Punk was supposed to go out there and talk about Moxley and build the match, and he did. He goes on to say they may build something from it down the line, but it's not scheduled at the pay-per-view, and nobody knew it was going to happen." So I guess first off, let's talk about, before I get into my thoughts about it, let's talk about this as if it's a shoot and everything was real and everything the dirt sheets are reporting is true. And if that's the case, when CM Punk came back through the curtain backstage, in my opinion, he should have got his ass beat.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a guy in Hangman that is one of the top baby faces in the company. Top 3, at least.
Yeah. You got to protect that dude.
Well, and you don't do this. This is not, this is the verbal equivalent of wrestlers shooting on each other in the ring. And so what happens when a shoot happens in the ring? Shit gets real and fisticuffs start flying.
Yeah, one of the headlines I saw today said they called it a receipt.
But I went back and watched you can go back and watch whatever the Page and Punk promo that's going on. Like, that's different because they're in the ring with each other. What makes this, because no one has a problem, right, with what happened last night with Punk calling out Kingston. Or he didn't really call him out, but he, said he's the third best Eddie he's ever been in the ring with, the second best Kingston. All that stuff makes sense, right? Because you're not directly challenging a person to come meet you in the middle of the ring.
Yeah.
This made Hangman look like a bitch.
Yeah, because, I mean, there's, I said something earlier to you about, like, I didn't even know if he was even there last night because he wasn't part of the show. So I was like, was he even there? And if he was, like, what was he doing? And you said that John Silver tweeted a picture of, like, Hangman just in craft services or something at that time, right?
Yeah, he was just in the back.
He was just chilling.
So again, like, if we were playing this out, if this is a shoot, then there should have been some words. There should have been a backstage altercation.
Yeah.
With a lot of different people. But my thought on this is that everybody's getting worked. It's a work. And I was trying to think today, I was like, have I written something for the site about what I feel like this new sort of era of kayfabe is? And so I pulled up something that I wrote back, the MJF stuff. Yep. When it was breaking out about, he had that weekend where people were like, oh, he booked a plane ticket out, he's pissed off, he's not going to be there, he's going to ruin Wardlow's moment, all this stuff that blew up to what it was. Obviously, we knew what happened with the promo after the fact, MJF calling Tony a fucking mark and all this stuff. And so this is what I wrote back then. And I think it makes sense again for today for how I feel. So I wrote, how fascinating would it be if all of it, from the reports of MJF and Khan's strenuous relationship to the no-showed meet and greet and plane ticket out of Las Vegas was nothing more than an elaborate ploy to get the modern-day wrestling fan, which thanks to the internet believes in some way they're smart to the business, back into a place of unknowing. If old-school kayfabe was marked by fans believing both the action inside the ring and the animosity between competitors was real, could we be approaching a new era of kayfabe, one in which the narratives of wrestling are not only crafted in front of the camera, but behind the scenes and in the dirt sheets as well?
So what's the name of your article that you're referring to there?
So
again?
I think it's called the brilliance of MJF's promo and the art of the work shoot.
Yeah, so y'all can go read more on that at thealabamatake.com from a few months ago.
Yeah, but I think that's what's, all these reports are indicating to the contrary. But to me, just looking at all this, and WWE has done this too recently. I think we've approached a new era of wrestling where the kayfabe of it all happens behind the scenes as well. I think this AEW locker room has all banded together and said, "Hey, let's let these storylines kind of bleed over behind the scenes as well." And boy, I mean, it sure is working the hell out of everybody today, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's all over the place today. You can't really avoid it.
And this is what they want. I mean, this is what they want, right? Isn't this what AEW wants? Like, we're talking about Hangman's been irrelevant since he lost the title. And in literally the first 2 minutes of the program, the biggest star of his generation completely makes him relevant again.
Yeah, I mean, because, as I mentioned earlier, it's like it made him kind of look like a bitch, and that's only if you're in it from the, well, I know he's back there and he's just not coming out, but like, if he wasn't, like you said, well, he was just in fucking craft services trying to eat or something, right? So then, like, what's he supposed to do? Jump up, get dressed real quick. How you can't do that, and he probably had to like. He was probably just sitting there like, what the fuck? There's no way I can run, and like he might not have even brought fucking like attire to wear. He might have just been backstage chilling.
Yeah.
Like, what's he supposed to do? Just get up from the table and run and try to get out there real quick and make it look like this was a planned thing? Like, like you said, maybe he should have gotten in his face when Punk walked backstage after that. Like, I'm just curious about what's going to come out about how that was handled. Supposedly there was no altercation or anything last night, but I mean, who knows?
Unless it's all a work.
Yeah, I mean, could be onto something.
I mean, and honestly, isn't it more fun this way, not knowing?
Yeah, I was thinking about it too. Like, I get caught up in reading shit throughout the day, and I'm kind of like, I don't know, maybe I might, I don't want to say enjoy it more, because I still enjoy it knowing the shit that I know about it going into the shows. I still enjoy the shows, but I'm like, maybe I just need to unsubscribe from all those shit and all the people that I follow that tweet about that shit and just watch the shows.
But it puts us back in a place of like, if you and me were in New York in 1927 and we were watching a pro wrestling match, like, we have now in this modern day, like, this is as close as what we're going to get. Like, we know that the rabbit is in the hat.
Yeah.
And is not just appearing out of thin air. But man, it's still magical when they can make us believe that some shit's actually happening.
Yeah.
Now, granted, all this could be, like we said at the beginning, this could be legit. And it could be Punk going in business for himself. We know a reputation that Punk has of rubbing people the wrong way.
You said that today, and then I saw it in an article a little while ago. Punk went in business for himself. Is that like an industry?
That's an insider term. Yeah, that's a guy. That's you doing, putting yourself over at the expense of everybody else.
Gotcha.
And when I was coming up, that shit is a no-no. Like, what Punk, if it's legit and this shit's real, like I said, what he did last night should have been met with a physical altercation. Like that's the equivalent of you getting in the ring with somebody and them actually trying to hurt you. Yeah. And at that point, it's a fucking fist fight.
Yeah.
And that's how it should have been met with. And so, who knows what's going to happen, but it makes things a lot more interesting. And you still have this MJF thing that's hovering out here.
Yeah, and I'm not convinced we won't see him at All Out.
Yeah, and I mean, getting back to the Punk promo and you know what, because that was literally the first 2 minutes, and then he went into the Moxley stuff. Yeah. Why is he calling out Hangman, and why are we doing all this? It's because he's laying the groundwork for a heel turn.
Yeah, and that's something you called a few weeks ago. You're like, I think he'll go heel,
and it's gonna be marvelous when it happens. This dude is just a natural heel. He is naturally abrasive. He is naturally, what's the word I'm looking for here? Kind of a dick.
Yeah.
He can be kind of a dick. You saw it even last night where Moxley's music hits, and he goes, I got some time. I'm going to do Snow Angels.
Yeah, yeah.
And, like, it's entertaining, but it's entertaining in the way where you're like, God, I hope somebody smashes this guy.
But it's funny in the way that it takes Moxley 3 minutes to get to the ring.
Yeah.
And he knew damn well, like, he could make a joke.
Right.
And it worked, I mean, because they cut to the overhead shot, and motherfucker's in the middle of the ring doing Snow Angels.
And it's great. And that's a little gif. And, like, you know, watching that promo last night between the two of them, I was kind of like, man, I hope Mox smashes this guy. I hope he beats the shit out of him. But, like I told you, like, Mox got a little bodied in that promo last night. Punk was hitting him with some zingers, and I feel like Mox wasn't on top of his game when it came to the mic. Yeah,
you could tell, like, it looked like he got caught off guard a little bit. And then he was like, oh, shit. And then his, like, back was up against the wall, and he wasn't where he needed to be in his headspace, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, Moxley saying, I'm the heart and soul, and then Punk coming back, you can be the heart and soul, I'll be the dollars and the cents.
Yeah.
Like, that's heel as shit. And my theory is that, like, CM Punk's been a heel this entire time he's been in AEW. It's just the fans haven't seen it yet. If you go back and watch every single feud that he has had with Kingston, with Hangman, with MJF, they have all pointed to CM Punk as the one being the bad guy. And you've even seen CM Punk. He's had this whole little thing. He had it with MJF. Like, I wake up every day in the mirror, ask myself, am I the good guy like I'm trying to be? Well, like, he isn't. And so if they want to run with this thing, the money move, like we've talked about, is to make CM Punk the bad guy, to make him the heel.
Yeah. And you, as you mentioned too, like a little while ago in our office, so talking about it, maybe that comes as soon as next week in Cincinnati, because he won't get a negative reaction in Chicago.
Yeah, so they're in Cleveland next week for Dynamite, for this unification. Cleveland, yeah. But, I mean, John's from Cincinnati. I don't know the geography of Ohio, but I'm assuming Cincinnati and Cleveland are pretty close. Close-ish, I guess.
Close enough.
And so, yeah, they threw it out there. Punk and Moxley are going to have a match.
Which is wild as shit, but, you know, you said, too, like, there's a reason they'll go ahead and do that. Because I was like, why the fuck would they move that up when the pay-per-view is the following week?
But the thing about it, though, is that, like, we've talked about this. You know, AEW is not in the position right now where they can only sell the pay-per-views. They have to get these ratings up for Dynamite, particularly when you have these contract talk, these TV talks contracts that are going to start popping up here in a little bit in the next few years. So, like, one of the ways to drum up that kind of excitement, and I think last night's episode was a perfect example, and it felt like an old school kind of, the reason why you and I fell in love with AEW to begin with, it felt chaotic. You're like, I don't know what the fuck's going to happen.
Yeah, that was, you know, another thing about the show last night is it felt like up until the very end, like they had time to really dig in when they wanted to. They didn't try to fit 17 segments into a show, you know. When I went to write out my recap today, I was like, wait, is that it? What am I missing? You know, there's only a handful of items that we're going to touch on, but they were all fairly solid items for the week. But, you know, usually I start writing out my little recap, and I got this line, this line, this line, this line, this line, this line, and I'm like, wait a minute, like, there weren't that many segments last night.
And you even hit on the Punk Moxley thing twice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That was a nice little
Poor little Tony Nese, whatever the hell he was going to do. And then he had a great tweet. He was like, "Man, you guys would have been real pissed if you knew who was gonna debut and I was gonna wrestle against." Just a little great little thing from Tony Nese. But that chaotic kind of energy. That's what made the Attitude Era so great. It felt like a fucking car crash. You didn't know what the fuck was gonna happen.
Yeah.
And it's AEW can't do. We've talked about it all the time. They can't do the kind of spectacle that WWE can do. So what do? You need to run in the direction of pro wrestling. You need to run in the direction of Danielson Garcia. You need to run in the direction of here's two fucking guys, and we don't know if they actually want to choke each other to death or not. This animosity might be real. It might be. We all might be getting worked. Who knows? This is the kind of stuff they need to be doing. I thought this was a great show last night, top to bottom. There's still some stuff we're going to nitpick and critique and stuff like that, stuff I'd like to see change, and, maybe they could be doing something better. But, like, top to bottom, man, this was an excellent episode of Dynamite.
Yeah, for sure. They spent a good bit of time, continuing on Moxley and Punk going at each other, chasing each other around just in the first 10 minutes of the show, like they did the classic, oh, okay, security got them broken up, and then they're back after each other, and then security's got them broken up, and then Punk climbs up on the rope, and Mox tries to jump up there with, it was... They did that for a few minutes, and it was almost to the point of being a little too long, and then they got out of it, which I thought was pretty smart. But yeah, I mean, it looked like they were getting some shots in there for a little while too, like on the outside of the ring. There was one where Mox was on the floor and Punk was up in the ring, and I don't think the security guards got to him quite in time, and it looked like he landed a couple that I was like, Mox might feel that one in the morning.
Yeah, and that pull-apart brawl, that's where the lack of AEW having any kind of, like, babyface management figure really kind of hampers them. They haven't chosen to go down that line of storytelling yet, because you would just have the GM come out and say, hey, wait, if you guys touch each other again, you're going to be suspended. Like, we have to keep it to the pay-per-view.
That wasn't when Buck was out last night, was it? Because he came out again last night.
He was out there. He was out there.
Yeah.
Guy in the suit, orange hair.
I couldn't remember
Buck.
if it was during that segment, but that doesn't make sense. It would have been a different segment.
But again, like if you had that baby face, someone like what a William Regal was in NXT, that in the first segment comes out and says, if you guys touch each other, I'll suspend both of you and fine you, and I'll strip both the titles away from both of you.
Yeah.
And then when Mox comes back out, and they go brawling again, that's when the babyface manager can come out and say, okay, you forced my hand. You know what? If you're not going to wait till the pay-per-view, let's do it next week. Because they just announced Moxley and Punk on a graphic, which kind of like, there's a better way to do that, but there might not be a better way to do it if you don't have that authority figure. So I don't know if that's something that creatively they'll look into doing. I don't think they need a heel authority figure, and that's kind of the temptation whenever you have someone in that spot. There's always that temptation of, well, we could turn them heel and do all these kind of stories, but I think that kind of gets a little bit lame and tiresome. WCW, before Eric Bischoff went heel, they had a committee, and they would have committee members out ever so often that would, say, oh, we're going to do Savage and Hogan for the title or whatever. So you could do something like that, an on-screen authority figure, someone that is a liaison for the AEW management. I think is something that maybe would help this show going forward.
Yeah.
But hell of a opening segment, and then we just that next match, Danielson Garcia, was another classic.
Yeah, I was about to switch us over to that one. 2 out of 3 falls on that one. They had a nice setup with this where Danielson had initially listed Garcia. He was the first person out of his mouth when they were talking about building the Blackpool Combat Club. Sorry, and Garcia stated his reverence for Danielson growing up and this, that, and the other, and they got after it big time last night. I didn't know how, with it being a 2 out of 3, I was like, I don't know how long they'll roll with this and make it last. But it was kind of like, it was almost kind of like they had 2 main events last night, really, because this was a hell of a first, third of the show, honestly, coming out with Punk and the Moxley thing, and then right into this. we talked about last week. They had a nice 1-2 punch right out of the gate, and then finished strong as well. This week was a little stronger overall show wise, but I think they're building something here with Danielson and Garcia, and I'm interested to see, because it was kind of unclear where Garcia stood last night, to me at least. Like, he ended up walking back out after Jericho. And then Jericho did that whole, well, we need to talk on TV next week. I'm just curious about where they're going with that, because it looked like he really wanted to shake Danielson's hand, even as he was, right there on the edge of the ring trying to get out.
Yeah, they might do the thing at the pay-per-view. There's always that funny meme people post about Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio had that custody match for Dominic. So maybe, I guess this is AEW's version of Jericho and Danielson are going to fight for the custody of Garcia. Garcia's a stud, man. He's got all the potential in the world. He reminds me of a very young Randy Orton. Orton around, I guess, 2004, 2005, somewhere like that, where obviously Randy physically looks better than Garcia, because Randy looks like he was fucking made in a lab to be a professional wrestler. But in terms of just their mannerism and their talent, they're both similar in that kind of way. I think Garcia can have a full career in AEW, multiple-time champion if he wants to. He has everything you want in the ring, technically, and it's really benefited him aligning himself with Jericho. I think that was the right call. I think you and I were both kind of skeptical at first, but I think that's being part of the JAS has allowed some of his personality to come out, and that's only going to help him going forward. And we talked about a couple of weeks ago Claudio and Takesha being when we look back at TV matches for AEW, being one of the best. This again, Danielson Garcia, 2 out of 3 falls. They went almost 30 minutes. This is going to be right up there again. Another classic AEW television match. And when it comes to Danielson, I got my notes right here. I think I'm ready to have the conversation that Bryan Danielson's the best in-ring performer of all time.
Yeah, he came out ripped as hell when he made his AEW debut, and they played into the concussion storyline even again last night, as a possibility when he got hit with the pile driver pretty early on. And just
let's only talk about Danielson's work in AEW alone. He's got the match with Omega. He's got the 2 matches with Hangman. One of them went 60 minutes, which was phenomenal. He's got this match with Garcia. You go back to his WWE run, he's got WrestleMania 30. And then you go back even further. He's got 7 years of Ring of Honor classics that has kind of flown under the radar a little bit, just because it didn't happen in a national promotion that had a big TV deal. It's not on a streaming service right now. But he had classic matches with Nigel McGuinness. He had classic matches with Takeshi Morishima, Samoa Joe. And you want to talk about the guys who have been influenced by Danielson. Garcia is one of them. Seth Rollins is one of them. All these guys who are main event level stars now. Danielson's 41. He influenced all those guys. So to me, yeah, I think he's better than Shawn Michaels in the ring. I think he's better than Bret Hart. I think he's better than Kurt Angle. I think he's better than AJ Styles and Savage and Steamboat and whoever else you want to throw in there. I'm in the Danielson camp now. This guy, there's never been someone more talented in the ring, bell to bell, between the ropes, than Bryan Danielson.
Yeah, you can only say it so many times, but they put on a real solid match, and I think that's a really compelling storyline moving forward. That's one I'm going to keep my eye on for sure. What do you think the culmination of this in this particular phase is? Do you think something happens at All Out with this story, or?
Yeah, it would probably be Jericho and Danielson at All Out, with maybe Garcia in Danielson's corner, or Garcia joining Blackpool Combat Club, or Garcia just striking out on his own. You saw it last night. What did the crowd start chanting? as soon as he slapped away Jericho's hand, Garcia. Like, the AEW crowd is just, like we've mentioned before, they're just conditioned to like pro wrestling. When you give them good pro wrestling, you will get over. That's been the whole thing. That's how Wheeler Yuta turned. That's how FTR turned babyface.
Yeah.
And now here we are with Garcia.
I don't know if I definitely... You might be onto something with him striking out on his own, because I don't know if they'll add any more members to the Blackpool Combat Club or not. I feel like I read, or, maybe Regal even mentioned that they might not add any more. But, I mean, it would be interesting for him to do it. Danielson clearly has some respect for Garcia, and he showed that, at the end of the match last night. But I don't know. I think I'd prefer to see Garcia outside the Jericho Appreciation Society, because right now it's kind of like the clown club, Yeah,
and the crowd last night chanting "You're a wrestler." And just a quick aside, now that WWE can say pro wrestling and wrestlers again, if Jericho doesn't trademark the last sports entertainer, that's really going to be a missed opportunity for T-shirt sales and merchandise.
Yeah.
Just the last sports entertainer, Chris Jericho.
Yeah. They did drop the sports entertainer of the week. I think I mentioned it a few weeks back that, like, I didn't think I noticed it on Rampage one night. I don't think they've done it in a month at this point. So I guess that they're over that already. Like, they're over Jim Ross coming out mid-show, unless they're just going to do it every once in a while, because he was there from the top last night too. So
yeah,
but yeah, you might be right. I think they might be Jericho versus Danielson at All Out. We're 2 weeks away really from
we're close
from this weekend, so they'll start. They'll put a couple of matches on at the last minute, I'm sure. But
next week we're in Cleveland, like we said, and then the next week, the next Dynamite's in Chicago, and they're there for the whole week.
Yeah, I figured we'll get a couple of announcements, because they really haven't confirmed anything for the card yet, right?
No, because we thought this unification match was going to happen, and it's probably still going to happen at All Out. Moxley and Punk probably ends in some kind of, disqualification or some kind of schmoz finish next week.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then Wardlow, FTR versus Lethal, Dutt, and Satnam. I guess it kind of got announced, or at least they challenged them.
That's really about it.
Yeah.
Obviously they'll do Jungle Boy and Christian Cage,
and we're gonna get the trios final.
Yeah.
At that too.
Well, I say let's move on. The next match was Gun Club versus Varsity Blondes. Lasted 31 seconds. I'm not high on the Varsity Blondes, but I'd be a little pissed off if I got called for that squash match.
I mean, it is what it is. It's wrestling. They're kind of, it's not an insult to them. Maybe they have potential, but they're job guys. I mean,
Sure.
You don't really have anything for them. Brian Pillman doesn't really have any of the charisma that his dad had. And again, it's not a knock on his dad, or on him, but you go back and watch some of the loose cannon stuff. I mean, that guy's he's magnetic on screen, and it looks like, unfortunately, that didn't get passed down to his son, and giving him a varsity gimmick with them chest bumping and that kind of shit, it really doesn't help them any. So
yeah, I mean, I guess it makes it more effective when at least it wouldn't have been as effective if they squashed like somebody from Dark that they brought up to get squashed. We've at least seen a little bit out of Varsity Blonde, so it makes the squash a little more effective.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got the turn of the ass boys turned on Daddy Ass, and I didn't see that coming. I mean, I guess I did a little bit. Like, you knew that like there was some tension there. I just didn't know if they would go all the way like they did last night. So I was a little taken aback by that. And then Billy reunited with the Acclaimed, which will be interesting to see moving forward.
The Acclaimed and the Billy Gunn stuff is so stupid and so over the top, and yet I can't get enough of it. It's great. We've talked about the Acclaimed and how they've been given this little runway to get themselves over, and like they've done it. Like, so shout out to those guys. And this Scissor Me Daddy Ass is taking off. And so, yeah, I mean, like we talk about.
Anthony Bowens is really into that scissor me shit.
And everybody, I mean, you saw it last night, got a huge pop. Like, wrestling is a variety show. You need people occupying different roles. You need the serious guys. You need the drama. You need the comedy. And, like, as a comedy mid-card tag team, I mean, they're hitting home runs every single time. And, like, I love the Gun Club turning on their dad. Because I think you and I both see some potential in Austin and Colton. And so whatever Stokely Hathaway has cooking, they're going to play a big part of that.
You notice how quickly he got the fuck out, too, right?
Oh, yeah.
It was funny because, like, the way they shot it, you know, he was on the ramp, they cut to the ring, and then it cuts back to the ramp. And I forgot who the Acclaimed had come out. And you could barely kind of see Stokely off the side of the ramp running. You know how, like, we'll go backstage off the ramp on the side. You can see him back in the background.
Yeah. It was great.
Just scooting.
A good little segment. Like, this is, it's made me want to see more. And, I mean, that's the whole point of any kind of story. Is it make you want to see more, or is it doesn't?
It makes me wonder if there'll be, like, a buy-in at the pay-per-view, because you're probably not going to put that on the pay-per-view. Unless they just continue this story out on the show weekly.
Yeah.
Who knows? I'm kind of wondering, too, if maybe we see the culmination of everything that Stokely's been building. If we see that the Wednesday before the big show. Or if they're going to keep trying to build that. But I feel like at a certain point, you gotta wrap that story up. So maybe that'll happen 2 weeks from now, right before the Sunday night show. I'm not real sure on that. But Jungle Boy was up next. I thought it was good that he finally got to get his hands on Christian Cage, but as we were talking earlier off mic, like, his compassion and his desire and his believability is still not really where it needs to be when he's on the microphone.
He just has no conviction about what he's saying. And I don't. There's so many other young guys in AEW. You know, I think when this feud with Christian Cage first started, we were like, oh, this is Jungle Boy's moment to show all the fans and people like you and me if he's a big-time player or not. And sadly for me, the verdict is no, I think. Despite Christian's best efforts, he's doing some of his best heel work he's ever done. Even last night, he was just pitch perfect, being like, I never said anything personal about you, just gaslighting like as hell, like it's just great. And Jungle Boy I don't know who's coaching him. I don't know if he's just doesn't have the instincts, if he's too young. If someone's coaching him, then they need to do a much better job, because they have not helped this guy in any kind of way.
Yeah, he's a little too nonchalant about it.
He's too nonchalant for somebody that 2 weeks ago literally tried to murder poor Tony Schiavone and Christian with a car. And then to come on Dynamite last night and just brag about it. Like, oh, you even tried to hit him with a car. If that's the case, then you cooled down quite a bit, because you let Christian walk all the way down the aisle. Like, going from murderous intent 2 weeks ago to I'm going to let you walk into the ring and actually say a bunch of stuff before I, like, try to get physical with you. That's a hell of a drop off, you know.
Yeah, and when he did try to, you could tell the crowd wasn't buying it when he did try to get riled up and start yelling. It just went from like 0 to 60, and the crowd was like, "Ooh!" Like,
yeah, I mean, they like Jungle Boy.
Yeah, it's like, but they weren't like, yeah.
But they're not. The heat from this thing has died off completely.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that was probably the lowest point in the show last night, and it wasn't horrible to me. They're still working towards the Jungle Boy Christian match. I thought near the end there, like, he was pounding Christian's head on the damn steps. I was like, all right, well, there's some conviction. You just got to turn that into your promos.
Yeah,
because he looked like he was out for blood. I was like, you just got to work this into when you got a mic in your hand.
Yeah, I mean, being a wrestling main eventer can't just be, you're talented between the ropes. It's got to be your delivery on the mic. It's got to be your character work. If it was just how good of a wrestler are you, then, there's a fucking Hulk Hogan wouldn't have been what he was, right? Like, there's a lot more that goes into professional wrestling than just doing cool moves when the time comes.
Yeah, I say let's move on next to there's a quick hit from Powerhouse Hobbs. He was backstage with Shivani. I was a little disappointed we didn't see Pretty Ricky at any point. But they're still trying to figure out, I think, what they're doing with that. I mean, what do you think on the whole with how that went down last night?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good promo from Powerhouse, but like, I don't know. I feel like we've kind of missed the mark with how hot Ricky was and how hot this angle could have been. I think I said when Ricky lost the FTW title to Hook, I think I said on the podcast, like, I'm cool with it if in 2 weeks Powerhouse destroys Hook, hands him his first loss, beats the dog piss out of him, beats the dog piss out of Taz, and then breaks the FTW belt, and that's how you write the belt off television. Well, that hasn't happened. Not only has that not happened, they're going to keep the FTW thing going, and we didn't even talk about Rampage from last week, but what a sorry show that was. And like Hook coming out and being interrupted by a dude that we've literally never seen on television before.
Yeah, reality TV star.
So like, I don't know. There were, Ricky can get himself over on the mic because he's so charismatic. Powerhouse, you got to kind of do some stuff for, you got to put him in the ring and let him beat the hell out of people. And I think, presenting Powerhouse as a monster heel inside the ring rather than having him say aggressive things loudly while staring at a camera backstage, the latter doesn't work. The former is how literally every single monster heel ever has ever gotten over. So like, and he has the potential. He's got the look. And again, like, it's not just fantasy. Like, I'm not just talking about the Hook because like it was an idea I had. Like, you do whatever the hell you want to do. I don't care. Like, there's just better ways to get this guy over and make this angle between Hobbs and Starks and Hobbs should be the second hottest angle on the show.
Yeah.
It should be right behind Punk and Moxley. You should be going in all out. We should be like, man, I can't wait to see what happens with the world title. And like, damn, I can't wait to see if fucking Starks is going to be able to overcome this gigantic human being that Hobbs is and get his fucking revenge for Hobbs taking his head off his shoulders a couple weeks ago. And like, it's just not, that's not what they've done. So
yeah,
I'm sure the match will be good whenever they get around to it.
Yeah, I did like that they hit on the fact that Hobbs turned on him because he said that he was used to losing.
That was a good deal. I did like that. That's something that we brought up on this podcast for Stark. I was like, I don't like this promo from Starks because he's supposed to be a babyface now, and like babyfaces, not even baby. No one is supposed to be used to losing.
Right.
So I'm glad that they brought that element back up at least. I wish they never would have done it in the first place. I think there was a better way to even do that turn. But, yeah, that was a nice little attention to detail. But, let's see this guy in the ring. That's where he really shines.
Yeah, I think.
And why is he still worried about the factory?
I don't know. I thought that was awkward.
He's just mad because they interrupted him.
Yeah,
like it's fucking AEW. Everybody gets interrupted.
Yeah, it was an awkward way to end the segment for sure. I was like, well, what the fuck is that about? Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Like who? Wow, I don't know. Who cares?
Yeah,
but.
Yeah, so next up, women's division, there was Kylan King versus Toni Storm. And I like the look of Kylan King. Apparently, she's wrestled a whole bunch on Dark. And, looked good in the ring, I thought. And they had a good match last night. Wasn't as good as some of the matches we had seen in the last few weeks leading up to. We kind of dogged the women's division the whole time we've been doing our show. But then a few weeks ago, they had 2 or 3 really good matches in a row.
They had a stretch
yeah.
where we were like, holy shit, this is the way it needs to go going forward.
And this one wasn't like dog shit, but it wasn't as good as the ones from a few weeks ago. But, that's probably what happens when you put somebody that they haven't, I'm not trying to say this in a negative way, but you're on dark and not on television for a reason, right? So you're just not there yet. So I don't know if she's come from somewhere else and they just needed a chance to look at her more. If she was a younger person, she didn't look super young to me though. I'm just trying to figure out where that is. But I mean, it was an okay match. It wasn't my favorite of the night. Match wise, it was probably the lowest rated by me of the night. But I said earlier to you, I think they need to go ahead and get the strap on Toni Storm sooner, probably rather than later.
Well, that's what so I'm trying to remember here. Did we hear anything from Thunder Rosa last night?
Other than her standing there watching the screen.
Right, okay.
She was standing backstage watching and just kind of nonchalantly clapped at the end when Toni won.
So again, it's like we're 2 weeks out from the pay-per-view. We had these 4 women who were the best 4 women in the division.
Circling each other. And we had an awesome match that I profusely praised and put over Jamie Hayter so hard because I think she's the future of that division. And yet, here we are. Jamie Hayter's not on TV. Britt Baker's not on TV. Thunder Rosa's doing the staring at the monitor while a camera's back there. And then you have Toni Storm in the ring. Like, we talk about it all the time. Are we using these people to the best of their capability? And are we trying to put these people in the best possible scenarios? And again, we don't need to see Toni Storm. No offense to the King girl. I'm sure she's talented. I kind of fast forward to this match because as soon as I saw it come on, I was like, well, I'm not, whatever. I don't have anything invested in this King girl. I don't know who she is. I know Toni Storm can work. She's great in the ring. I don't need to see her keep beating people to get herself over. Right? Like she's already over. So let's try to advance a story here. And, AEW had a little bit more a lot more direction last night in a lot of its main things, but there's still little ancillary things that are kind of falling through the cracks, which is unfortunate because the AEW women's title is a main title on the show. And it's been relegated to, hey, let's just let the champion look at a monitor in the back and we're 2 weeks out from the pay-per-view. Yeah, because if you're trying to build some sort of drama and tension for that title leading up to the pay-per-view and All Out, they just really haven't done it. There's only so much you can do in 2 weeks. Right.
I mean, I think you and I both thought that this was leading up to a 4-way at the pay-per-view because, it's not that we've seen Thunder Rosa and Toni Storm before. It's literally that we saw them this is her last challenger for the title was Thunder and Toni. That's what they did.
Yeah.
And now with this Statlander injury, which is also kind of weird in the build because they weren't really Thunder Rosa and Statlander weren't doing anything, but they were just like, Statlander's injured, so now it's Toni again, which, whatever. So now we're doing this, but I thought that we were going to do a 4-way at the pay-per-view.
Yeah, I mean, coulda, woulda, shoulda. Maybe they still
do. Who knows?
Still will, yeah. Because I mean, they made it a point to say that Thunder was nonchalantly clapping. So like maybe there's some tension there between her and Toni, but like they haven't really hinted at any of that until last night.
Yeah.
So who knows?
So these are 2 bad weeks for the women's division after 3 really solid weeks because Jade and Madison really wasn't that great last week.
Yeah.
And now you have, the women's division got 1 segment on the show, and this was it.
I mean, they typically only get, I say they only get 1. Sometimes do the TNT title on there too, but usually, I feel like it's usually just 1 segment for the women's. I could be wrong.
But they got talent there.
Yeah.
I think that I don't think you and I have really ever criticized the from the top tier stars. Now, we've criticized Jade Cargill's and her matches just because she's green, right? But I don't think we've ever said, Tony and Thunder and Jamie and Britt and these, Athena, like Chris, they're not good in the ring.
It's the direction.
It's the direction. It's the booking. It's the position they're being put in. The creative is what we've been critical of because there's just been none of it. It's just been lacking completely.
I kind of hope, excuse me, I kind of hope they get it together with Kenny being back. He'll be there. He made it kind of a point to be out of the public eye while he was rehabbing his injuries or injury, whatever the case may be. But maybe with him being back in the fold a little more, because he had his hands all in the women's division early on, and he wanted to do mixed matches, and maybe that's the reason why the women's division has been floundering for so long.
Hikaru Shida, former women's champion, she's still on the roster. She's great. She's nowhere to be found.
Yeah,
unless she's on YouTube, which
I feel like she had a match somewhat recently, a couple months ago, but I haven't seen her.
Serena Deeb.
Yeah.
Serena Deeb is an excellent technician in the ring.
Yeah, I think she had a dark match this week.
Like, we got women that we can use.
Yeah, and tell stories with.
Yeah, we just got to do something with them.
So the main event last night, Andrade El Idolo and Roosh and Dragon Lee versus the Young Bucks and the quote-unquote mystery opponent, which everybody knew was going to be Kenny. I would have been shocked if it was anybody but Kenny. But yeah, Kenny made a grand entrance. Kenny looked great in the ring last night. They were playing up his knee's injured. Oh, his shoulder's also injured. They used that quite a bit in the story. Can he pull off the one-winged angel? But I texted friend of the show, Eddie Forsyth. I think I mention him every week. I texted Eddie because Eddie is fairly new to AEW. He's only been watching for the last couple months. And I said, man, Kenny can still go, because Eddie had seen Kenny in some of his Japanese wrestling matches days. And I was like, Kenny still goes hard, man, and he still looks good in the ring. I kind of forgot how big in stature he is. Yeah,
he's jacked.
Yeah.
He's a jacked individual.
But he's like big too, though. Like just big build, big frame, I kind of forgotten about that, but there was one time he was bouncing off the ropes. I was like, God damn. I hadn't seen him in 10 months. I just hadn't thought about him, honestly. But yeah, what was the move he took off the side of the ring when Dragon Lee did through the ropes?
It looked like a diving blockbuster.
Yeah.
Into the crowd, which, a lot of people on the internet will be like, oh my God, they're going to hit a kid and get sued. Let me tell you something. Barring any kind of like terrible, catastrophic, getting kicked in the face and, getting your damn neck broke. If I was a 7-year-old kid at a wrestling event and these wrestlers just flew into my lap, that would be the greatest thing that ever happened.
Also, it's on your fucking parents. Like, don't buy a ticket for a 7-year-old to be in the front row. Some shit's going to pop off at some point.
Well, nothing happened to the girl last night. She's fine. All harm, no harm, no foul. It was even great. The camera caught her saying sorry on the thing, which was just, cute as hell for a little kid. But that's fucking great. That's why you want to brawl. People are like, why do people do all these brawling into the crowd? It's like, man, you're trying to create these moments for people that have paid fucking $100 for a ticket and have gotten a damn babysitter and driven and deal with the hassle of fucking parking and all these other assholes. And then they get there and the fucking John Moxley's right there sweating on them. Like, it's good. Like, that is what wrestling is about. That's how you build long-lasting relationships with these people where they become lifelong fans. That's how you do it. And doing the blockbuster onto the thing, happening right in front of those people, they'll talk about that.
Yeah, they're somewhere right now telling stories about that shit.
Right, and fucking kudos to Dragon Lee. Holy shit, hell of a bump. And then a lot of people were like, oh, Kenny doesn't look all the way back. It's like, well, Kenny's a masterful storyteller, and he's working all of us, and, he's playing up the injury angle. If he's not 100%, one, he's not going to be out there. Two, he's damn sure not taking that bump off that fucking guardrail.
Yeah.
And, that's, it's good to see him back. I always love seeing these people, or anybody really, doing what they love at such a high level. And he loves professional wrestling. You know, all the credit goes to him for even really having AEW. You know, it's him and the Young Bucks, and Cody and Hangman, and, you know, really Omega for not only wrestling here in the States, but in Japan too. You know, there's a lot of guys like Ospreay, guys like Jay White. You know, they wouldn't be in those positions that they are in New Japan if it wasn't for Kenny Omega really laying the groundwork for them. So again, when we talk about people's influence on the art form after they're gone, you know, Kenny is, you know, to me, in my mind, I haven't, you know, he's definitely top 20 all time, I think.
Yeah, and he's still, to me, it's like he toes the line between like new school and like old school. Like, I'm talking about old school to me when I was a kid in the 80s when I watched wrestling. He plays to the crowd. You know, you don't see that a ton these days. And like, I mean, Kenny's a little over the top with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's more of a showman than a lot of the guys. And that, like, I had just kind of forgotten about that too. But then seeing him last night, I'm like, he knows what he's doing. And he's fucking good at it.
Yeah, and you know, him and the Young Bucks catch a lot of shit because of... I love Jim Cornette. I love his podcast. Anybody that knows Cornette knows that he can't fucking stand Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. And so they've talked about it, how Cornette's fans have become like a cult, and they give him shit all the time online and death threats and all this shit. A lot of that stuff is unwarranted, and I think a lot of it is Cornette, you know. Cornette also was in the wrestling business for decades and decades, and at some point, you know, anyone in the wrestling business for that long, you have to kind of look at sideways sometimes and be like, oh, are they working me? Like, what are, you know, who knows? They're all that stuff, but yeah, so much of the hate is unwarranted. I mean, Kenny is a master craftsman, and the way, and so with the Young Bucks, the way they put these matches together, the way that they go about telling stories, it really is, like, it is beautiful. It was beautiful to watch him last night do the tope con hilo, do the fucking one-winged angel, although it looks like he damn knocked out Dragon Leaf, like, for real. Yeah. But hey, them, you know, you get hyped up. You ain't been in the ring for 9 months. You hit one of them V triggers. You get a little too antsy, and all of a sudden you catch one on the temple. You know.
Yeah, because you know there was the show of respect between Kenny and Dragon Lee before the match.
Right.
And then at the end, you know,
he's talking to him.
Yeah.
I think it was probably like, "Hey man, my bad, I fucked up."
Like, yeah.
Because or either Dragon Lee is a fucking all-time seller in the ring.
Yeah.
Because he
looked
just
like he was out
limp.
cold.
Yeah.
Bitch, you got knocked the fuck out.
I mean, that's what that's what it looked like. I mean, and you know, showing how strong he is. He got a fucking almost, you know, Dragon Lee's probably 180 pounds, and if he was knocked out cold, that's 180 pounds of dead weight that he got up on his shoulders and delivered the move.
Yeah,
that's why
he looked like he was struggling to get him up. Like,
yeah, and that's why I think like it wasn't, you know, that was for real. He for real caught a knee in the side of the head and went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs for about 45 seconds and was like, it happens. It happened to me in the ring a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, it happened with Garcia too, because if Garcia, if he wasn't loopy, he sure was playing loopy real damn good.
You know, and it can be anything. It can be you taking a bump wrong. It can be, you know, a kick to the face that goes wrong, and you're for 30 seconds, you're just like, holy, and you know, at that point it's just running on instinct. And then at the end of 30 seconds, you just go, oh, okay, I'm all right, I'm back, but I was out. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, one of my only complaints from the show last night, and you know, we've talked about this before, with the production at the end, it felt like it was a little too quick on, oh, look, Andrade just fucking DDT Dragon Lee, and now Rush is turning against his own brother, and then his mask is off, and then boom, we're in a commercial on the next show.
Yeah, but I think we talked about that. I kind of disagree with you there for a little bit. I liked it being that quick because we got to see the meat of it. We got to see Andrade turn on Dragon Lee, the mask comes off. You get the last shot reaction of Kenny throwing his hands up, what the hell, and then it just goes to black because it's going to make us want to watch next week. So I think the bad part of production that we always talk about is just like if we had not seen it at all, right?
True.
So like if we didn't get the shot of Andrade hitting the hammerlock DDT, and the camera was just on Kenny, I was like, we'll be back, and Kenny throws his hands up, and then we go to black and not know what it is. Like that's the bad thing of AEW that we've done.
Yeah,
WCW used to do this all the time, where Tony Schiavone be like, "We're running out of time, come back now," and like shit's just popping off.
Yeah, I felt like it just needed a little, maybe 10 more seconds to breathe, just a little. But I mean, I totally get what you're saying. It makes sense.
Yeah, because when we bitch about production, it's like, oh, somebody just hit a dive, and we know what happened because the crowd just stood up, but we don't know what the hell happened. We missed it completely.
Yeah.
So at least this, we got, I'm okay with just getting a little taste of it.
Yeah.
And seeing what's happening. And Dragon Lee, like, that's the first time I've ever seen him. I mean, man, he's impressive. And people know how we feel about Andrade and Roosh.
Yeah. I mean, that whole damn walkout. Carter said last night that he thought that Andrade, Carter's my son, by the way, that he might be doing a little bit of cosplay. He said because that really looked like a character, and Carter named the character, and of course I'd never heard of it. But I mean, it's still a cool ass entrance with that pull away suit and that fucking mask.
Yeah.
And then Roosh's mask, and those dudes are in top form, like muscle wise. And
I love the little detail at the beginning of the match, Dragon Lee and Omega with the handshake, and then that being kind of the thing that pissed off Andrade and Roosh. And so little things like that. I mean, I still think Andrade is just heavily underutilized. Just their little short interaction. I was trying to think, have Andrade and Omega been in the ring before?
They alluded to it last night. They said that the two of them had some history together, I believe.
Has it been in AEW? Okay, so it has to have been in AAA then.
Yeah, it must have been.
Maybe they, Omega was AAA champion there for a little bit, so maybe they had that. Yeah, I was trying to think. I don't think they locked up in AEW.
I don't recall.
Because Omega's been gone for, 8 months.
Yeah.
I would love to see a feud between the two of them. I think they'd put on some hell of a matches.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but just Andrade, I wish we could figure out some kind of use for him because I think he's, if you surround him with the right pieces, primarily a manager that can kind of handle the bulk of the promo work, I think that dude's a fucking stud and a superstar.
Yeah, for sure. You just needs the right mouthpiece, really. I mean, his ring work speaks for itself.
Yeah, so the Young Bucks and Omega move on, and boy, if we get a Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega in the ring after all the shit that they've talked on social media.
Oh damn! I hadn't thought about that. Yeah. I mean, they're not. Who are they up against first? Ospreay and
I believe it's Death Triangle. They could go over Death Triangle. I don't know if I would make that call. But,
I wouldn't make that call, man. As much as I like Will Ospreay from what I saw of him recently in those matches he had on AEW, I don't know, man. Fucking Pac and the Lucha Brothers, like, those dudes are solid as hell as a trio.
Yeah, but I don't know. I want to see it. I want to see Ospreay and Omega, because you want to talk about, is it a work, is it a shoot? I mean, Ospreay's out here fucking. He did. Have you been keeping up with that?
No.
So Ospreay did he's been hitting the one-winged angel in his matches.
Oh shit! Yeah, I did know he did that once.
He put out some kind of shirt that was mocking Kenny Omega.
I didn't see that.
And then apparently AEW hit him with a cease and desist letter. So he went on Instagram or Twitter or something and did like a 2.5-minute video where he just called Kenny a little bitch and all this stuff like that. And so if it's legit, let's get him in the ring and see what's up.
So what? I mean, okay, let's discuss it. I mean, what's the point of having some dude who's not even signed to your fucking company in a trios tournament, right? Unless you want to put him up against Kenny.
I mean, that when I saw the bracket come out, I was like, man, there were two things that stood out. The Trust Busters, just because who the fuck wants to see them? They have no business being in this trios tournament whatsoever. And then, yeah, you have an Ospreay in there, and you're just like, well, why are you bringing... I mean, Ospreay is one of the best 3 wrestlers in the world right now. He's top 3.
Oh, I would love it if AEW signed him. I just don't understand the logic on why is he in the tournament.
Yeah, and like you would bring him in if he's just going to lose the Death Triangle. You know, you could put anybody in that thing to just have them lose the Death Triangle. So maybe you bring them in for the purpose of, hey, the Dynamite before in 2 weeks for the semifinals to see who's going to go that Sunday to win the trios tournament. We're going to have Ospreay and fucking Omega in the ring together.
Yeah, unless Ospreay and Aussie Open lose to the triangle, and then you set up something of maybe doing Kenny versus Ospreay, because they're fixing to do another crossover where some of the AEW folks are going to Japan.
Oh, for Wrestle Kingdom in January.
Yeah. So maybe you set something up for that. I don't know.
It could be. Yeah. I mean, if Omega feels and Tony Khan want him to be working those kind of dates coming back from an injury, because I think Ospreay just lost in the G1 to Okada. So that, you know, Okada and Ospreay might be the main event at Wrestle Kingdom. I don't know if New Japan would want somebody who's not full time being in a program with one of their top stars. Because I mean, Ospreay is one of the biggest stars of New Japan. So who knows? It's all interesting. I mean, regardless, it's going to be a great match between Aussie Open, United Empire, and Death Triangle. Like that. I mean, that'll be. You know, we talk about another guy that's underutilized and underrated. I mean, Pac is.
Yeah.
He's with best of the best. Ray Phoenix and Pentagon are awesome. I mean, AEW puts on good wrestling matches. That's all they ever do. It's the storylines that we have a little bit of trouble with. But in terms of bell-to-bell action, I mean, they're untouchable.
Yeah, for sure.
So here we are 2 weeks from All Out, and it's gearing up. You know, we've talked about the show kind of feeling directionless, and at least this point it's moving into some kind of direction.
Yeah, I mean, they got literally, if you only really, because they do most of the story shit on Dynamite.
Yeah.
They just have a lot of one-off matches on Rampage. You really got 2 weeks to wrap this shit up.
Yeah, you know, even when we've been critical of AEW these past couple weeks, really before last week, Punk coming out last week really feels like it changed the direction. And, you know, obviously Punk is a huge star, but, like, the show's never been boring.
No.
It's been sort of puzzling to watch at times where you're just like, I don't know why they're making this decision, but it's a decision, whatever it is. And it, you know.
Well, that happened.
Yeah. And so we've never been able to call the show boring. And now it feels like it is hitting its stride. And let's hope it continues, because this is AEW season, right? We go from All Out, and then we turn right around. In a couple more weeks, we're going to have Grand Slam. You know, they're going to put fucking 20,000 people in Arthur Ashe again.
Yeah.
Is that when we see MJF come back? Does he come back Grand Slam?
I hadn't thought about that. In New York. Yeah.
Do we have sort of a mini reign of terror from Punk here as a heel thing, and then MJF comes back, and who knows? You know, I made my pitch that I think they should be in a faction together and they should team up, but who knows what they do with that. I mean, that MJF has been the question mark that has been dangling over this entire program that no one on the show has talked about whatsoever. It's just been us fans. People being like, when's the MJF going to come back? When's MJF going to come back? I mean, they have kept this thing under wraps about as well as you could possibly do it.
Yeah, I mean, because you have to assume he's got some sort of salary, unless it's just, how do those contracts work? Do you have any sort of, like, salary whether you've got matches or not?
I mean, yeah, probably, yeah. The way that they're doing it is you're getting paid a salary. Some of those guys that we know they're on appearance deals. Some of the lower card guys, But the people like Punk and Moxley and Hangman and the Bucks and obviously MJF, I mean, they're getting paid per week or per month or however it shakes out.
Right. Interesting.
It's exciting. And then we'll have, what is it, Full Gear? Was it November?
Yeah.
So, I mean, well, this is AEW's time. This is it.
Let's roll. I'm excited.
Yep.
So tell me what's done up real good for you this week.
Licorice Pizza by Paul Thomas Anderson. I finally got around to seeing that. I think it came out 2 Christmases ago at this point. I don't even know. Huge Paul Thomas Anderson fan. And Licorice Pizza I think it was one of his weaker films in his filmography. But, I mean, it's like, pun intended, I guess. It's like a bad piece of pizza. You know, even the bad pieces of pizza are fucking awesome. So,
right. Knock Little Caesars all you want, but if you put a Little Caesars pizza in front of me, I'm still going to eat that motherfucker.
Hell yeah. It's great. $5.
Roll Tide.
That's all you get.
We lived on those motherfuckers for a few years.
Speaking of Little Caesars, what did I run across that was pro wrestling? Oh, something about, what did I see? Goldberg and Ming. You know who Ming is?
Mm-mm.
Ming is like a Samoan guy, like a legendary badass. He was always a mid-card guy in WCW, but I mean, you can go online and read stories of Flair talking about Ming. You want to talk about some of the most feared guys backstage in wrestling history. There's a folklore out there that he fucking ripped a guy's jaw off in a bar. Ooh. Yeah, just a tough son of a bitch. And what did I come across? It was a Little Caesar commercial that had Goldberg and Ming in it. Goldberg, at the top of his run, is in this commercial with Ming, of all people. And I think it had something to do, there was a story that someone posted, it was on Squared Circle, and it was like, yeah, Ming got this commercial because Goldberg dropped him on his head or something. And so I guess the thinking was like, hey, fucking Ming might actually beat the shit out of our biggest star and like fucking kill him. So like we need to, hey, sorry for dropping you on your head. Here's a fucking commercial where you can get, a nice payday out of it. Yeah, you can go on YouTube and Goldberg and Ming Little Caesars commercial. I think it's from like 1999. Just random. That made me pop off. Anyway, yeah, Licorice Pizza, it's great. It's on Amazon Prime if you want to watch it. Good little hangout movie. It's got some cool cameos from Bradley Cooper and Sean Penn, and I mean, PTA is the best of the best going today, and so anytime he puts out a movie, it's an event for me. So
nice. So what's done up real good for me this week was I did a bourbon restock on Friday evening, and most of it I got was just the usuals. Like I was out of my Four Roses small batch. I got a bottle of Larceny, which I hadn't had in a while. I got a bottle of Woodford. But I bought something new I got was a blackened whiskey, which is from a distillery in New York or somewhere, but it's the Metallica branded whiskey. Their whole like brand is blackened or whatever licenses, blah, blah, blah. But there were commercials for it in the Metallica podcast that came out last year when they did the sort of 30th anniversary of the Black album, and they kept advertising the blackened whiskey, and I finally bought a bottle, and it's fucking smooth and really good. It's finished in like brandy barrels or some shit. I don't know. It's good. That's all I know. I liked it.
That's the go-to move for any celebrity. You reach a certain status, and it's like, I got to get me a tequila brand or a fucking whiskey brand or, a gin brand. I got to have some kind of liquor that I put my name to.
Yeah, I mean, and their name it's not anywhere on the bottle. It just says, it's just called Blackened. And unless you know that about Metallica, you're not going to fucking know.
Yeah.
Anything, you wouldn't know otherwise.
It's like those, there was clips a couple weeks ago of Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul going to like different Costco's and stuff, hawking their, I think it's a tequila brand or a vodka brand they have or whatever.
Yeah.
There was a cool little moment where I think Aaron met the two twins that played in the one episode. Spoilers for Breaking Bad, but obviously you should fucking go see it by now. You remember that episode where that little like rundown kid in that house, and he was like, "Have a good life, kid." Like the heartbreaking scene.
I had to take a pause from that show for a couple weeks. Well, I was kind of binge watching it.
Yeah,
because I was playing catch up to try to get to the finale when it was actually on TV, and I got to that episode and I was like, I got to take a couple weeks to not watch this fucking show.
So there was a cool little moment where the two twins, who now look like they're like teenagers. They go walking up to him at this at the Costco or whatever, and Aaron Paul like does a double take, and he's like, "Holy shit!" Like he recognizes them, and they have a little moment and take a picture. And that's a cool little. He seems like a really cool guy, Aaron Paul.
I bet he'd be a fun hang.
Yeah. So and then Breaking Call Saul. What the fuck? We did a huge mashup. Better Call Saul has just ended, and neither you and I are caught up on it. Because
I have no fucking idea. I need to go back and figure out where I left
YouTube
off.
TV. I watched the first episode of this new season, and then literally the next day they took like the next 4 episodes off, and so it went from I could have watched episode 1 and then went all the way to like episode 7, and I was like, well, this is dumb as shit. So
Horse shit.
I gotta wait till it comes out on Netflix.
Oh,
unfortunately.
Well, man, y'all, thanks for sticking with us this week. We'll do the usual rundown into show stuff. If you don't already, please follow us at Alabama Slam Pod on Twitter and Instagram. You can get t-shirts at tpublic.com. Just search Alabama Slam, or you can search for our main site, the Alabama Take. We've got shirts for our other shows that are on our site for Taking It Down. There'll be some more shows coming out in the very near future you can get there as well, but there's shirts, coffee mugs, stickers, all kinds of shit there. And follow us on give us a review on Apple Podcasts, and give us 4 stars, 5 stars. I forget how many stars are on fucking Apple Podcasts.
If you're not going to give us 5, I don't know. I mean, I guess you can be truthful, but if you don't like the show,
there you go.
My advice is keep it to yourself.
Yeah, if you don't like the show, keep your words to yourself. If you do like the show, it would really help us out, because that helps put us up in the rankings and shit like that, and gets more eyeballs on the show. And yeah, man, we'll holler back at y'all next week. I feel like the shit'll pop off next Wednesday. I've just got a feeling like they're gonna go ahead and declare a couple of shows for the pay-per-view, and we'll really get an idea of where a couple of these stories are going. I think
we are on the road to All Out, Chicago. Man. It's gonna be interesting.
All right, we'll see y'all next week.
Later, guys.